Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Today we are talking about how to survive morning sickness with my top 10 tips. If you're new here, hi, my name is Holly. I'm currently 17 weeks pregnant with baby number 4, so I've definitely had my fair share of morning sickness over the years. I want to share some of the unique tips that I've learned that are not so commonly spoke about. I've actually had 2 relatively easy pregnancies sickness-wise, but with both my girls I had super intense nausea with some vomiting, and I pretty much hibernated for the first 3 months. So let's dive right into tip number 1. So the first thing I want to talk about is something that I've literally never heard anybody else talk about. I don't know if it's just me that's realised that these are super handy for morning sickness because they're not actually marketed for morning sickness, but they're called Cool and Soothes, and they tend to be marketed for headaches and migraines, and they're little cooling forehead strips. They're like gel strips. They're completely non-medicinal, and they have literally been a lifesaver in all 4 pregnancies. So as you probably already know, when you get sick, when you get nauseous, or if you're actually throwing up, we tend to overheat, and one thing that I found really helps if I'm actually actively throwing up, or even to prevent myself from getting to that stage, is wearing these forehead cooling strips and just lying down. And I don't know, it just helps regulate your body temperature, and really if you're starting to get feverish, it can have such a soothing effect that really I found personally significantly improved my way of coping with morning sickness. When I was actually pregnant with our rainbow baby a couple of years ago, we were actually crazy enough in my first trimester to drive from North Yorkshire all the way down to Disney Paris. And trust me, in the car rides, as much as people will think you look a little bit weird, they literally saved my life, and I just slept in the car, had these on, and they just kept me going and kept the nausea at bay. And of course I will link everything down below so you can check everything out. But moving on to tip number 2. Now we all know hydration is super important, but it can be incredibly difficult, and especially taking huge amounts of glugs of drink, it can make your stomach, especially if you haven't eaten and you just got this liquid rolling around in your stomach, it can make you feel so nauseated. So a way that I personally have combated that is, it doesn't matter what time of year it is, I don't care if it's the middle of winter, ice lollies are my way of keeping my hydration levels up without overdoing it. It's almost like having a drip feeder, but you're just slowly intaking fluids but ensuring that you are getting fluids in, which obviously when you're throwing up as well, the last thing you want is to get dehydrated. So it's just a different way of obtaining your liquids, and I find that the cooling relief that comes from the ice lollies really helps with the nausea as well. I have heard of people freezing electrolyte drinks like Gatorade, Powerade, them sort of things, because as well as keeping you hydrated and that cooling relief of just sucking on the ice cube, it's also keeping your electrolytes up. Tip number 3, and I know this may be a slightly more obvious one, but trust me, bland foods. So I'm talking oaty biscuits, Weetabix, pasta, rice, cereal, anything that is not overpowering. Quite starchy foods I found really helped. So I actually had a packet of oaty biscuits, like Hobnobs, but I think I got like the unbrand ones, and I kept them in my bedside table, and so I would eat one as soon as I woke up, and it made a big difference to how the rest of my day would go. But I just found in the first trimester, surviving and keeping your calories up is more important than necessarily worrying too much about nutrition. As much as it is super important, you still are hopefully taking multivitamins, and you could also get your nutrition a lot from like smoothies and stuff, but just for actually being able to stomach stuff, I highly recommend trying the starchier, more bland foods. So tip number 4 is to embrace loose, baggy clothes. You might not be starting to show in your first trimester, you might not have a bump at all, but anything, I found personally, anything restrictive, tight jeans, anything like that, really, anything pressing on my stomach made me so much more nauseous, and I literally had to live in dresses, leggings, which I am not really a dress person. I know I'm wearing one now, but that's because I'm literally running out of clothes that fit me at the minute, and I haven't got out my maternity clothes yet from the loft. But yeah, I found myself living in comfy clothes, and it makes a big difference when there is not something restrictive on your belly. So as much as you would think because you don't have a bump you don't need to wear the looser fitting clothes yet, I would honestly try it if it is the difference between you throwing up and not throwing up. So tip number 5 is to eat as soon as you have woken up, and I literally mean before you go to the bathroom, before you move out of bed. Have something by your bed, and if you honestly can't stomach any food, one piece of advice that a lot of people shared on the Facebook groups that I'm part of is to have a drink as soon as you wake up, because at least then the main thing with this, apart from obviously the fact that nausea tends to be worse when you've got an empty stomach, the worst thing in the world if you're vomiting a lot and you're waking up to vomit is you really don't want to be vomiting stomach acid. So even if you take a drink of water or even cordial like squash, whatever you have, whatever you can tolerate, just try and have something in your stomach so that it is not burning your throat when you are throwing up. So like I said before, I literally had a pack of OT biscuits on my bedside table, and even if you could eat just half of the biscuit, not only is it going to put something in your stomach and make you less nauseous hopefully, but also if you're going to throw up, it's going to be a lot less nasty like stomach acids really coming up and burning your throat, and we all know how awful that feels. Moving on to tip number 6, and this is actually my alternative to ginger. I know everybody raves about ginger and I'm not discrediting it at all. I know how it is proven to actually work and really be effective, but personally I really don't like the taste of ginger. I mean, maybe I'll have a gingerbread man every now and again, but when it's too overpowering, like even in general ginger nut biscuits and stuff, I just can't deal with them. My husband absolutely loves them and he like slavers them with butter and stuff, but no, I really do not like ginger, like the really strong potent taste that you get from a lot of ginger foods. So my alternative is mint, and this has also been proven to be really good for morning sickness as well. I'm not necessarily recommending that you would drink it in a herbal tea, because herbal teas are one of those things that are a bit funny during pregnancy, but one thing that I used in my first pregnancy, I always had a packet of Polo mints in my pocket, and if I ever felt slightly nauseous I would then eat a Polo mint. But obviously you could use any type of preferred mint sweets or even like minty chewing gums, and personally I've just found this a much more palatable option than the ginger. So give it a try and let me know what you think, if you think it works as well as, if it tastes better, and I'd love to know how you get on with it. Tip number 7, and this I guess is maybe more for the people that live in countries where we don't typically have air conditioning. Obviously in the UK pretty much nobody has air conditioning, even though all summer long all you will hear, if we actually do get a warm summer, everyone will just complain and complain about how hot the weather is. Even though normally we're complaining because it's raining all the time, then we don't like it when it gets too hot either. But I would definitely suggest investing in a fan, and even over winter months. I just find that in pregnancy, when you've got a baby in your belly, it's literally like having a central heating system, and especially when you're nauseous, the last thing you want is to be overheating. And I found, especially I used this a lot in my first pregnancy, because my god, that summer that he was born was so hot and I couldn't get comfortable. And obviously a big part of looking after yourself is getting some rest and getting sleep, especially when you're nauseous. So even if this doesn't specifically target the nausea, although generally I find that if I'm cooler I do feel less nauseous, but the difference it made to just being able to have naps when I was pregnant with my first and have the fan blowing on me, and it just made a big difference to me dealing with pregnancy in general. But I do think this is something that would help with just looking after yourself in the first trimester and hopefully prevent with the nausea as well. So let me know how you get on with that one. So tip number 8, and this is going to sound like a really weird one, but having a tidy house, and I don't mean like clutter and like you don't need to go on a KonMari like sorting all your cupboards out and stuff. What I mean, and actually if you do have a partner or someone that you're living with, I implore you to ask them to help you with this. But basically what I'm talking about is smells. So personally for me, and I find a lot of other people struggle with this with nausea, is that smells are extremely triggering. I found that I was literally like a sniffer dog, and if I could smell anything, like I just didn't want my home to smell of anything. So I'm talking like ask your partner to keep on top of keeping the fridge clean, so that if you ever go and decide you actually have enough motivation to want to eat something, the last thing you want is to open your fridge up and there's rotten vegetables in there that they've left for like a week. Another thing is like keeping pet stuff clean, like pet bedding and especially cat litter, which was just, I could just smell it from a mile away. And obviously when you're pregnant you're not meant to deal with cat litter anyway, so hopefully your partner or whoever you live with will help out with that if you do have pets. So I found even candles were overpowering, so maybe just put them away for now and just have a very minimalist approach to anything that smells. Just avoid smells. So tip number 9 is something that I've kind of had experience with, and it kind of splits into 2 different points. Firstly is make sure you're consistent with taking your multivitamin, because I found personally that when I didn't take it consistently, the days when I would forget to take it is when my nausea really flared up. So that's kind of part 1 of this tip, is to be consistent and regularly take your multivitamin. But if you're still finding that that is an issue, one thing that you could speak with your doctor about is changing the brand of pregnancy vitamin that you're taking. And I found a lot of people that I've spoke to found that just changing the multivitamin they were taking made a significant difference to their morning sickness. So that's also something to consider and discuss with your doctor. I didn't have that issue. I'm quite happy with the brand I'm using, but I just found that I needed to be consistent of when I actually took it. So for tip number 10, and I know a lot of people are going to be maybe not so sure about this tip, because obviously there is this thing about not telling anybody about your pregnancy until you're at the safe zone, which is obviously classed as 12 weeks. Personally, I've lost a daughter at 16 days old, and I've then since learned that I would much rather have the emotional support in case anything did happen, but that's a completely different topic. But one thing that I found helpful during my first trimester is actually just being open and honest and telling people. And I know a lot of people find that really difficult and they don't want to, but I found it's more beneficial that then you have that support, and then people are so much more understanding. Like, really make the most of your family and friends, because often there can be a lot more understanding than you would expect in theory, and then hopefully they will offer to help out. Like, if you do have other children, they can maybe look after your children for an afternoon so that you can have a nap and just rest and recover. But also I find that including people and actually being quite open has been beneficial for me, because then I have the emotional support. And I found that actually the first trimester mentally is one of the toughest, because you feel so bad and you don't have anything to show for it. And I've just found that in terms of looking after my mental health as well as my physical health, it just really helps to be able to have people to talk to about the physical symptoms so that they can make allowances and be more understanding. So then you don't necessarily get shunned for the fact that you maybe don't want to go out for dinner, and then there be more understanding. But also then you have that support of when emotionally, like I have only thrown up once in this pregnancy and I was crying my eyes out that night. I was like not coping at all. So I can imagine that if you are sick every single day, the emotional toll it would take. And the best thing I personally think you could do, I just really recommend at least finding someone to talk to about it, because yeah, it's hard, it's not easy, it's really a hard part of pregnancy. It's the worst part of pregnancy in my eyes, and honestly having that emotional support I found to be super helpful. So maybe just even if you could find that one person that you could trust, so maybe just give that a go and see if it does lighten the load and just help you get through these next few weeks until you can get to the wonderful second trimester, where hopefully things will settle down, fingers crossed for you, and you can start to enjoy the baby movements and the pregnancy glow that everybody apparently talks about. So this is my bonus tip, because I thought it would be weird if I said I had 11 tips, but this one, it won't help you with like preventing being sick, but trust me, just trust me on this one. Make sure you have a bucket in your car. I have had just trust me from experience. I'm not going to tell a story, I'm not going to go into detail. Just make sure you have a bucket in your car. Hopefully you're not going to be throwing up while driving. Thankfully I don't drive, so I've not had that worry. And maybe put some like carry bags and stuff in your car, because yeah, and maybe a bowl of water so you can rinse off the bucket. And just yeah, you don't want to be driving around with sick really, and it kind of makes me feel sick talking about that, and I'm sorry if it's made you nauseous, but just trust that I have had 4 pregnancies of experience and definitely make sure you've got a bucket in your car. So that is it, guys. That is my top 10 tips for surviving morning sickness. Comment down below if there was anything new that you learned today, anything that you think is really going to help you. Let me know if anything does work for you, and if you have any other tips that I've not mentioned that you think a lot of people don't talk about, then make sure you comment down below so other people can benefit and go through the comments and see if there's anything else that I've missed that maybe will help them. And obviously, if you are concerned about your morning sickness, please do talk to your doctor or midwife. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and if you did, make sure to give it a big thumbs up down below. It really helps out my channel. And for more pregnancy and mummy and lifestyle videos, make sure to click the subscribe button down below, and of course share with all your mummy friends that might find this video helpful too. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye guys!